So tell me, you were talking about how you were angry, and we have discussed a lot about how I am often in a better position to come in and talk to someone about a situation or a frustration or whatever, because white women, we aren't very often get labeled as angry. So Danielle and I can say the exact same thing in the same way. She is angry. Y'all, I'm concerned. I have some concerns, you know? People are like, oh, there's this concerned woman. And maybe I'm concerned for dumb reasons and people think I'm doing too much or making, a mess out of something that isn't really a mess. But because of the way our society perceives black women and white women, when Danielle literally goes into Target and says like, hey, I notice all your yellow people or your Lego people are yellow Lego people, which is pretty much could be read as white. Like, where are your brown Lego people? Could we have some of those in this store in East Atlanta that has quite a few, brown neighbors, y'all? Come on. That she is like being, extra or like doing too much, or she's angry about it.
Security on me.
They might call security on you. I never in my life ever, not even once, have thought, oh, they're going to call security on me.
I thought Barnes & Noble was. Remember, like in February, I started this semi-campaign against Barnes & Noble, particularly the one in Edgewood, because they didn't have a Black History Month display at all, and so I became this Black History Month deserves more Barnes & Noble, and they usually do. I've lived in East Atlanta for 5 years, and last year was the first year that I was like, what is going on? And I kind of started a campaign, and I was concerned from the people in marketing that I sent messages to. Finally, they just started ignoring me. But I didn't get that I was concerned. They were very condescending to me and made it like I didn't know what I was talking about. And so I sent a message back, and it was kind of just like, I pulled the education card, pretty much. Like, I let them know that, like, you're dealing with someone who's highly educated and who has a network of people who are educated as well. And so some of my white mom friends started going into the Barnes & Nobles in their areas and were like, where's your Black History Month display? It's February 20th, pretty much, and you have nothing. And they kind of were like, oh, it's coming like next week, or they made up excuses. But then when my black mom friends came out, they were like, that's it. And it was like this little panel in the children's section that was not for Black History Month. So we were dismissed for the most part. And yeah, you're concerned. I'm angry. I've said this in a Facebook video that I did about using our privilege during the school year. So if the white moms go into the PTA meetings and they're talking about the level of diversity, or really not so much diversity, but there's all these studies about when the PTA meetings are run by parents who make more money and who are in a position to have the flexibility to come. So I'm considered one of those parents at this point. Like, I have the flexibility in my schedule, I have the education, I know what to say. But if I bring up things about diversity, or if I bring up things about, hey, all of our kids can't afford to do these kinds of things, or maybe we should think about having our PTA meetings at a time when parents aren't working, or can we consider having some type of child care for them? So when those parents don't show up to PTA, they're considered lazy, and no one's thinking about the fact that they literally cannot afford to miss work. They want to be there for moms and muffins, but they can't miss work. So how do we make sure those children don't feel neglected in some ways? And using our privilege to do that.
Right. And so talk to me about my favorite part of your class is about identifying your own blind spots. So what are blind spots? How do we identify them? And then also, how have you done that in your life?
Oh boy. So I would say the premise behind the whole class in the beginning, or for those 3 weeks for this first class, is all about identifying your prejudice, identifying your privilege, and figuring out how to make sure that doesn't trickle into your parenting. So for me, I grew up in a very strict religious household, very patriarchal, not necessarily my whole house, but the church. So my community was very patriarchal, very like this right here is not what I should be wearing in a congregation. And I had anxiety about the fact that I am wearing open-toe, strappy sandals in a church. I would never go back home to my home church wearing that or jeans in a church. Like that would just be, or my shoulder showing, which is why I'm wearing a cardigan. Like I literally, and my husband's like, he kept saying, it's not like that. You're going to be fine.
It's not like that, you guys.
And then he grew up Methodist, so this is completely different for him as well. And he's like, it's a method. You'll be fine. Stop freaking out. So those are some of my blind spots in regards to, I always think, am I being feminine enough? Is it bad that I don't clean my house and my husband does more cleaning? Am I a bad wife because I am not cooking every single day? Those kind of things. And also that I grew up very much with gender roles. Heterosexual marriages were the only type of marriages. So working through that struggle within myself. In college, I was in a Christian sorority. I went to a leadership conference for that sorority, and I think I was president that year. And it's tons of different organizations, and they do all these bonding activities, but also kind of teaching you some of your blind spots in leadership. And we played a game, which isn't really a game. I wish they would have called it a game. But it's you step across the line if you believe something. And one of the statements was, step across the line if you believe being gay is wrong, or if being gay, something that I knew that I had to step across the line. One, because I am there as leadership for the Christian sorority on campus, so everyone knows, this is 2004-03, so everyone knows our kind of position on it. Do I need to? Oh. Sorry. Okay. That's going to be loud. So it was step across the line if you believe that being gay is wrong. And I stood there for a long time because you couldn't stand on the line. You had to be on one side or the other. And I crossed the line and I burst into tears. And as soon as I burst into tears, every gay person in the room who was out as gay at that time crossed that line and hugged me and comforted me. And I'm sorry.
I love this.
And I was, 21 maybe? It was right before I moved to Atlanta. And that entire weekend at the conference, they could see that I was like really struggling with it. And they were talking to me at lunch. And I'm like, everything I've learned since I was 5 years old says that this is wrong, but I didn't feel okay crossing that line. Like, why didn't I feel okay? Why can't I defend that belief? And so that has been something that I continuously work at. Like, I've recently noticed that we don't have enough books in our house that show same-sex marriages. And I need to work on that. He goes to school, he sees same-sex couples, he knows that that's a thing, but I need to make sure that he sees it more in the house. I need to work on gender non-conforming, and I'm still struggling with how to work on that with him, because I know he's going to ask me someday if someone who presents as a woman is not a woman or something like, and I'm not going to know what to say. That's a blind spot for me, and it's something that I am working through, and that I have a community of people who check me on that, who'll say, just like I'll check them if what they're saying is racist or it comes from a prejudiced perspective, they'll say, hey, you need to kind of think that through, here's something to read, and that's what I do back for them.
That's really good. So I think you bring up a really interesting point when you said that you stepped over the line, you burst into tears because you were like, okay, I know that this is not okay. But and that it was the LGBTQ community that were the ones who comforted you in that moment.
Yeah.
So I think that as white people, y'all were afraid. I was really afraid. And I didn't know how to talk about race. I didn't want to appear stupid. I was talking to someone about this recently, and we talked about how I was raised, or the community that I was in raised me to believe that I should not come into a situation uneducated and ill-prepared. Mm-hmm. And every single time I talk about race, to this day, in some capacity, I out myself as uneducated or ill-prepared or both, right? And it's awful, and it's like so uncomfortable, even as somebody who organizes things like this and writes about race publicly and has conversations about it. I get checked on Twitter once a week where someone is like, hey, just, can you see how you said that? But that's like not, I'm like, yes. So it turns out, y'all, all our black friends already know that we don't know how to talk about race. We're not outing ourselves to them. They already know that. Like they do. My students, some of whom, they didn't know how to use a sentence properly, like write one down that would pass the SAT test. They sure did know that I didn't know how to talk about race. I didn't need to tell them that. So that's one thing, is I think we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about that all day long. Like, we need to do that. But that's like talking about running all day long and then running a marathon. Like, you have to do it.
Yes.
You have to do it.
Yes. So you have to, I like to say, you have to put your pride to the side, pretty much. And for me, that's what I do a lot. Like, for my blind spots, I'm putting my pride to the side. I'm also putting my fear of working with white people to the side. So that has come up, and I guess Abby would say that I didn't necessarily trust her, so to speak. I haven't had positive experiences trusting white women specifically, because obviously I want to be with the girls, and I'm always the only black person in academia for the most part, which means I don't have many options. But I haven't always always felt safe, I should say. So I haven't felt safe that I can say what you said to me or what you said about these students is harmful in these ways, because one, I've been told that I'm scary. So when I've done that, I've been told that I'm scary and I'm abrasive, and well, maybe if you said it in a different tone, or maybe if you weren't so passionate about it. And this comes from women. This doesn't come from, these are the same comments that men say to us, but I've had other women say that to me. And so in order to do this, I had to get past that fear. And that was really my, talking to my husband about this. It was like, okay, I can write all these blog posts, but I am not dealing with white people. And he was like, you have to. And I was like, no. They're going to turn on me, and I'm scared. They're going to tell me that I'm being too angry, when really I'm just telling them how I feel. And we've literally practiced me being more even-keeled. He's like, well, it hurts that I have to do that, but I try to tone it down. I don't have to do that with Abby, and Abby knows when I'm doing it. And she's like, stop. Tell me the truth. I know. She's like, don't care. I don't care if I'm comfortable right now. And we all need to feel safe doing that. So sometimes it's not that black people don't want to talk to you about race. It's just we already we have a defensive wall up, because we're waiting for you to either use that against us, turn against us in some way, which happens, or throw us under the bus. We were watching, so I'm finally watching Underground with my husband. It's taken us a very long time to get through it. And we were watching a scene where the slave master's son is talking to the slave master's illegitimate child, and they're friends at this point. And the slave master's son says, when I own this plantation, pretty much, I'm gonna free you. And he offers him some candy or something, and James doesn't want this candy because he's been working in the fields, and he's mad and he's angry that he's an 8-year-old or 9-year-old in the fields at this point, after living more of a cushy life, or if that is even a thing when you're a slave. And he says, I don't want anything from you. And immediately after he does that, the slave master's son goes in the house and tells his dad that he saw one of the slaves running away, which he had seen. So he'd seen the slave running away. He didn't care at that point. It was more of, I'm going to save you. But then he got mad because James wouldn't accept that candy from him. And my husband looked at me and he was like, this is why I'm afraid of Braxton going to school where he has so many white friends. And I was like, what? I hadn't thought about that part yet. I was more concerned about his pride in being black. And he was like, if he says something they don't like,